Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get started. My name is Will Yerman. Welcome to the last of our fall journalism lecture series talks tonight. We will pick up again in the spring with new ones, but for the moment, Tom Brenner is going to bring us home. Just a few quick things, and then we'll get started with Tom. I am the Norman Eberly Professor of Professional Practice here at the Donald P. Belisario College of Communications. And I want to thank the Eberlys for the support they give the college and the support that helps us bring in speakers like Tom all semester long. We really appreciate that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. We will be back in the spring. We're looking for speakers even as I speak. If anyone out there has someone they'd love to hear from, feel free to drop that in the chat or drop me an email over the next couple of weeks as we start to pull together speakers from across journalism for the spring. If this is the first time you've been in a Zoom webinar, you can relax. We can't see you. So you can sit back, kick off your shoes, put on your pajamas, whatever you need, and listen to Tom's talk, and then we'll take some questions. Depending on what kind of device you're on, you should see a chat or a Q&A button, and that's the place, either of those places is fine for submitting questions. Tom may try and take them as he's going, or we'll certainly leave some time at the end for questions from him. So our speaker tonight, Tom Brenner, he's a photojournalist. He's currently covering American politics in Washington, D.C. I will say that I discovered him on Instagram. His Instagram is a real source for me of inspiration and just sort of joy over photography. I think the photos are really creative and brilliant. And if you haven't seen his work, that's the place to go, at least to start. He's a 2016 graduate of the Rochester Institute of Technology's photojournalism department. Rochester is my hometown, so it's a double pleasure to have him here tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom, and we will take questions from everyone at the end. So sit back and enjoy. And Tom, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you so much, Will. And it's great. I know I can't see you all, but thanks for being here tonight. I've got a couple pictures to run through. I've got some talking points. I'm kind of just recently out of school, so I know a lot of you, like I had at one point, was a little nervous graduating. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I'm sure some of you are also there too, and that's totally okay. And at any time, if you want to ask me a question, I'm happy to take it real quick in the Q&A. And as always, as I do with these, you're more than welcome to email me afterwards if you don't feel comfortable with your question right now. Happy to answer it to another time. So I'm going to start here, and we have my screen shared. And let me just get our presentation up here right now. Okay. And Will, can everybody see this okay? Are we looking good?
I can see it. Looks great. If
okay, all right.
If in trouble, they can drop a note in the chat.
Sounds like great. Awesome. All right. So as Will said, my name is Tom Brenner. I'm a photographer right now with Thomson Reuters based in Washington, D.C. I started in D.C. in the spring of 2017 when I was an intern at the New York Times. I had been there for about a year and made my way up freelancing into Reuters. And I've been on contract now for just a little bit over a year, filling in originally for a staff photographer that was on sabbatical leave. And now I'm still here. And as we speak, I'm actually in Delaware covering the Biden campaign. And we just finished up for today. And now we are waiting to hear what's on for tomorrow's schedule at this time. So just a little bit about going back to that background. Wanted to run you, I've interned a few times at some different news outlets throughout school. As soon as I could, sophomore year at RIT was when they really tried to push us to be getting out in the field and to try and intern places or work under a photographer or a studio and just trying to really branch out and network a bit. We had a lot of teachers that had come from heavy news backgrounds. So that really influenced on kind of how I thought about it and how to approach working in the field eventually after graduation. I had started in Albany, New York at the Times-Union, moved on to the Baltimore Sun in Maryland, and after school, right after graduation, I took an internship in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the M Live paper there. All throughout that time, I had been freelancing here and there for Getty Images, and had sort of covered mostly D1 sports, some various news assignments, Buffalo Sabres here and there. I kind of had a nice, healthy run around what we need to cover in news, whether it was portraits or features or, small stories or, from big city to rural. It was all covered in a lot of these internships. Unfortunately, though, the one in Albany was actually unpaid, but I was lucky enough to have relatives in the area that would be able to put me up in terms of housing. After school, I had then gone over to finish that with the New York Times. I had basically wanted to leave photojournalism. I wasn't happy with what I was doing in Grand Rapids. I eventually, I moved back to my parents' house. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was freelancing at some small, tiny local papers, and just sort of wanted to chew away at my debt. Most importantly, and actually enrolled in Firefighter Academy at the time as sort of a plan B. At the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had nothing to do with politics or had any ambition to go where I am now today. And I'll talk about more of that in a little bit. So here's some of the places I've worked here in DC. They all cover a lot of politics in a variety of ways. Others have more access than others. Mostly I've been at the US Capitol and at the White House. A lot of these places, excluding the Star Ledger, I worked for them a lot when I was living at home. I'm from New Jersey originally. All of these places work together in a lot of the same areas. A lot of these are competitors. We're all friendly in most ways. We are always covering a lot of the same things. You see us almost what looks like you would see a red carpet event, or if you could, in some of the wider shots on the political TV shows, you'd see all of us together and it looks like a rugby scrum. But a lot of these organizations and outlets and papers all, we're all focusing on the same news topics at many times of the day. So back to that, I had never had any interest in this. I had no ambitions to go into covering politics. And it wasn't until a colleague of mine had he'd come over and expressed to me that his internship at the New York Times was going to be over with, and there's some other places in town I should try to look at if I was really into covering politics. I said, no, I'm not interested at all. That's not really for me. At the time, we were down for the last inauguration in 2016 or 2017, and he said, well, you really like it, and it looks like you like it, at least what I could see from out there on the, when we were on the street. And I think you should give it a shot. You should try it out. What do you have to lose? And he was absolutely right. And it's my friend Al Drago. He works here too in DC. He had brought me on, and he said, come shadow it with us. Come check it out. I'll bring you in so you could see it firsthand. And if it wasn't for Al, I wouldn't be here today. How I had met Al was just like how I'd met people at so many of these different events and workshops. Most notably was MPPA's Northern Shore Course. It's a fantastic weekend event for those of you who haven't been able to go or haven't heard of it yet. It's a open experience for people who want to check out TV or doing video or still photography, what it's most famously known for. Mountain Workshops was a great hands-on. It's a shooting workshop. You go out and you make pictures for 3 days straight. You're coached. Definitely turned the curve for me in terms of my grasping how this field works. And as well, I got to go to the Eddie Adams workshop, and it took on 2 trips from my school to New York and DC, sort of as extra credit classes where we were able to go in and meet some of these people. We were very lucky to go see some of the outlets and organizations that lead the headlines that we see today. Anybody have any questions so far? Oh, should be all good. So when we're going to these events, what I wanted to talk about, a huge learning curve for me was to uh, be prepared at these networking events that I've been talking about. Um, when you go to meet new people in this field, I always would come out prepared to have my portfolio. I'd have a small printed, a little book, a 4x6 book to have on me, or I'd have 8x12s, whatever was, sort of able. If I had enough money in the budget to make those prints that semester, I know that can be tough, uh, but it makes a great difference when you're able to go in and meet some of the people you want to meet, and when you're talking right there, and they say, "Well, I'd love to show you my work," and you have it right there on command, you're ready to go in and just show them right away. You always should have your business cards with your name, address, where you're based, and your website. And we want to make sure that everything that you develop as a professional is unified, it has the same look, and it has it sort of uh, just overall will represent you in how well it's consistently laid out. So again, and social media too. Uh, Keep that cleaned up. Make that all ready to go. No bad pictures. Don't, even on your Facebook, even if you don't think other people, professionals, are looking, they're going to be looking. They want to make sure, if they're going to hire you for a job, that they have someone that they can trust and rely on. And I think that goes without saying. Earlier on in my early times in college or in high school, Facebook and Instagram were sort of coming to light, and it wasn't really as big of a mainstream deal as it is now. And so I knew a lot of people that had issues with, their digital dirt not being cleaned up, and that's one of the big things I think students are doing a better job of. And um, it should be, make sure everything is just on point, for in case you never know. Um, and lastly, on that point, it's so important to just stay in touch with the people that you meet. um, it's hard. Editors, especially these days, are so swamped with so much work, and it's hard to, you make a connection with someone, an editor, you want to show them your work, you want to have a meeting. If you don't follow up, if you don't stay in touch, it's extremely difficult. They might likely forget about you because they're just buried. They don't have time to go back and look for you. You have to be constantly consistent and clear to the point when you do get to communicate with those people that you do want to see. Um, it's always the best that, FaceTime is the number one thing that keeps those relationships alive. Uh, a handshake is better than a phone call, and a phone call is better than an email. But nonetheless, just keep it up and be consistent with how you communicate with others. So as a student, and I know a lot of you are stuck right now at your homes or on campus, there's a lot going on in the country and the world, and it's really difficult. I always wanted to get in a van with my classmates and travel as far as we could to the big event that happened that year, or that month, or what was making those headlines. I wanted to go. I wanted to be, seeing, getting a piece of that action, if you will. It's editors have a hard time, seeing that, and the number one thing I was always told when I would try to do these things, to go after these news events, is they would say, "All right, well, show me how this affects your hometown community. Show me, if you can't cover your own backyard, how are you going to cover the biggest events in the world down the line, however long that may take?" Uh, it's difficult to see that if you can't be intimate with people that are in your community, um, that's going to translate into how you cover bigger events, bigger, more emotionally driven events. How you're going to interact with the people that you're going to be assigned to interact with. And it doesn't take a lot of gear to go out in your backyard and to make meaningful pictures, uh, with great intent, and that shows that you care about the people that you're documenting. And I've been there. I've had enough money to afford a $100 50 mm lens and whatever camera I could get a hold of, or whatever whatever we had at school at the time. and it wasn't much. It didn't seem like enough, but your character of you as a photographer shows based on how much you can work it with what you got. Especially as some newsrooms these days are just so limited with resources, and it's difficult. And you will grow exponentially if you can master your gear. You put in that 10,000 hour limit into your equipment, and the work will follow. I can promise you that. So again, show me how your hometown is. So I work at this place. You may have seen it on TV a couple times. Been covering the White House since my start in DC in 2017. Um, some days here, this was at the end of a long day. We kind of try to go outside as much as we can. I'm not allowed onto that grass at all. Uh, we make pictures in limited places as much as possible, as best we can. This happened to me the other night, actually. It was just a beautiful sunset after a kind of a gray, foggy fall day. So I'll show you some of my White House stuff, and then I'll show you some of my Capitol Hill pictures too, and a little bit in between. I like to make different pictures. I sort of gained that habit really just looking at the beautiful part about Washington is everything is documented. It's very well documented. It's all online, and you can see what everybody has done or did at one point in time. And that can be a blessing and a burden, because sometimes you come up with a great idea and you realize that so and so got it. They had done that a year ago, and so you got to go back to the drawing board. It's frustrating. Uh, I got When we would cover Trump, he would give us a monumental amount of time. Normally, in many events, when we have, say, if there's a event in the Oval Office and the president like to make a statement to the press, um, in past administrations and years, this has been incredibly quick. This can be anywhere from 2 minutes to 4 minutes. The Trumps give us sometimes 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I've been in certain rooms for 60 minutes. And so you get used to making the same pictures over and over, and that happens a lot. I trip on my own stuff. I keep hitting the wall because I feel like I've been repeating myself for the last 3 days inside the White House or anywhere in that matter. And so I like to make very different pictures, um, throwing the editor's curveballs, if you will, for stuff like this. I don't think this picture ran on the wire. Um, we had a discussion about it. I liked it. The editors didn't, but they didn't see it as fit to be, marketable, because we are a business. We all have clients here that we have to tailor to. And sadly, this one didn't make the cut. This is when Trump was coming out of the stairway of Air Force One last year in a bit of a wind gust. Trump going to see greeting some supporters in Utica, New York. Sometimes we have fun on Halloween from a few years back. Things get a little stormy some days. Happens occasionally. Has a tough time. We've had some bad weather in the past at the White House. This is kind of timely. This is Thanksgiving. Every year, the president traditionally has pardoned a turkey, one of two turkeys. This year, this is the carpet to the briefing room where the podium is, where you would see Sarah Sanders and Kayleigh McEnany deliver their remarks on TV. This is the carpet down below, studded with stars. And again, sometimes I try to make different angles happen. I like to go make the safe pictures. I make the pictures that we need, the obvious pictures that are right in front of me. When we come into the Oval Office like this is in the Oval Office, we are really rushed in quickly because everybody has to go down and set up. There's always 12 of us that roll with the president wherever he goes. And there's always television cameras and people with tripods that need to set up really quickly once we're allowed into the Oval Office. Once we're inside there, he's already there. He's set up with whoever he's about to talk to. Odds are we're getting in there as soon as he's almost wrapping up the meeting itself. And this was after, I think we had a long one. Like I had said, we'd been inside this room for maybe 20 minutes. And eventually, once you can't move, I was down on my knees, obviously, but you kind of get sick of making the same old pictures where you just think nothing's going on. So we try to go and make something different. And, it's a risk I'm willing to take. It may not be the safest picture out there, but it's important to use your best judgment to go in and find something sort of new and fresh and different. But make sure you get what you need before you start doing this. This is at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. President likes his Diet Pepsis, has those out occasionally here. Again, playing with this blue button is a recording light on a TV camera. You're actually seeing above Trump's head is the arm of the eyepiece of the camera. This is in his Bedminster Golf Club during a summer vacation stay. And these are some friendly folks that weren't too pleased that we were in the way during a Trump rally. A lot of times we move around, and sometimes some of the audience members who have been waiting there for hours and hours to see the man aren't too fond of us being there right away. So we assure them we're moving and we're not going to stick around too long. Sometimes they don't like it either way, and as you see here, express the views that we need to go or keep moving, which happens pretty routine, or did happen routinely rather. So I photographed this through a van window. We were sitting in the motorcade at a iron factory, or a steel mill rather. Just some funny moments with the Secret Service and some of the workers from the mill. And this has lately been the scene in the Oval Office. All the journalists, we get tested for COVID every single morning. I get the same here covering Biden. A lot of administration officials choose to not, and we've seen that prove otherwise. It can be kind of a risky environment to work in. So we, do our best to be as precautionary as possible and to play it safe. I wear an N95 mask every day, a fresh one every day. Usually wrap it up with some of the lighter blue surgical mask you would see here in the picture. So it can be a risk, but you have to take it one day at a time and follow all the rules as best you can. So this is on Air Force One. This is actually on the small plane. Trump talking to us after a rally. Secretary Betsy DeVos talking to some students one day. And I'd covered this not too long ago, where we had had some rain at the White House these past couple weeks. The president hasn't been coming out to greet us or to have any press events, or nothing publicly scheduled for us to see, as he's currently still disputing the election. And so we're still stationed at the White House. I have a seat where we all hang out and wait in case we have to be called for anything. We sometimes, even though there's nothing on the president's schedule for us that day, that can change on a dime, and we'd have to rush back to cover anything. That hasn't been the case. So I've really been trying to make different pictures that sort of show the situation as is, even though we don't have anybody literally there to photograph. I got bored one day and found the White House in a raindrop. I think I photographed this with a 200 to 400 with an extender. It came out to nearly 600 millimeters. But this is just a raindrop off of an awning, kind of like a COVID curve, hopefully flattening out. And this was an Army-Navy game. All the sailors, the midshipmen, saluting during the national anthem. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, he's also a senior advisor in the White House. And this is earlier on with Dr. Fauci and President Trump. President speaking in Florida. Coming out to lay a wreath during a veterans ceremony at the World War II Memorial. That's the First Lady up there in the foreground. And the president greeting his granddaughter after a rally. I caught this. This is the president and the First Lady. Before they were walking into the Oval Office, they had spoke to the members of the press in the Rose Garden, and then before they had turned away, I had just caught this moment. This is a pretty heavy crop just beforehand, and this was out at the Trump campaign headquarters a day before Election Day. If you see the clock on the wall, the zeros, these are all the campaign staff members. And this is him waving as soon as we had hit campaign day. This is his last time over there before everybody would go in to watch to see how the election would roll out. And I also covered this place too, the Capitol of the U.S. Sorry, that sounded terrible. The U.S. Capitol is something we cover as well. This is from Independence Day. Some of the inflatables walking or moving by sort of along the mall. It's a huge parade every year, except for this year, of course. A lot of it, the scenes look like this. The Capitol, the rules inside the Capitol are very different from the White House, where there's a set number of journalists that are allowed in for certain things, only a few writers, X amount of photographers and TV. This can be a scene when someone big comes in for a hearing with the Senate or on the House side. Just massive amounts of cameras everywhere. We've had to mark our spots around this table. I think this photo was captured at 9:30 in the morning. I stood in that spot at 8 in the morning, waiting for Zuckerberg to come in. This is a Facebook CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, for those who don't know. But just crazy amounts of photographers and journalists always. So you have to be very creative and thinking on your feet as to where you want to go, because you might be blocked. You might be, you might miss it because somebody happened to be in the way and you just can't move them right now, or there's something going on that you can't get around. And sometimes that's how it goes. It doesn't always work out. This is William Barr. He's the Attorney General testifying before the Senate. A lot of times too, a lot of these slow days, sometimes I only need to photograph a certain member of Congress, and it can get pretty boring sitting in those hearings all day. Sometimes they last several hours. We're allowed inside these hearing rooms to in certain appropriated areas where we're allowed to go in and make pictures. We cannot go up into the dais, the seating area for all the members where they sit, like you would probably see on TV, with their name tags down below. We cannot go up there to see them, but we can look from far off. I usually bring some longer lenses to the hill at times, or try to change it up and make some funny. If I see something like a lot of animated conversation, I'll try and make some grids like this. Just something I enjoyed, and work doesn't mind that I do it either. We've run a couple of these on the wire at times too, and sort of it's an outlet for creativity for covering the Hill. It's not always pretty, but we try to make it different. And this was Congressman Elijah Cummings yelling at Mark Meadows, who's not pictured here. He's actually now the chief of staff at the White House. But that's Congressman Jim Jordan on the left. And they were in a bit of a heated debate about, I think, the Hatch Act at the time. And things got a little almost out of hand there. As you can see the gavel flying towards the table. This is a senator who enjoys the camera a little too much, it seems. There's a choke point in the Capitol where a lot of the members go into a certain set of elevators where they go in to go up to cast a vote on the floor of the Senate. And so we all kind of crowd around the elevators. This is where they can get a quick quote in. If they want to talk and walk with a writer about something, this would be the place to do it. This is sort of like the last second you see of those members before they go all the way up. Senator Lindsey Graham. Some late night cleaning after Speaker Pelosi was elected to be the speaker by the Democrats last year, or last term around. Speaker Pelosi. I get to cover the State of the Union addresses. We have some fixed positions up here, as you can see, just above all of the little Apple laptop lights in the back above the president there. We cover it all angles from above and down below all the members of Congress. There's usually one press photographer that gets to go down and work on the floor, which is, it happens only during the State of the Union addresses. It's not normal, where you photograph everything of all of the members, and those pictures get pulled out to the entire press corps, distributed evenly and equally. Every year it rotates. It's a different organization that gets to cover that. It's something very rare. It's a great privilege, but you have incredible access to the people that run this country. This is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, and she was celebrating. The president had acknowledged it at that point during, I think this was 2018, when they were, a lot of them were freshman members. That was the most amount of women serving in Congress in United States history. So they all stood up, everybody got a round of applause, and it was sort of just a nice, happy moment all around. And this is Senator John McCain from a few years back, just shortly before he passed away. And he was on the Senate Arms Committee, and so this is during a regular committee hearing. It's an honorary tradition. They put a black canvas down over his seat, and there's I think a moment of silence before the meeting begins, the hearing rather. Sort of a tradition in Congress. And this was when he was taken off the plane from Arizona to be laid to rest at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Sometimes I get to travel too with the president. I fly on Air Force One. I've been to several countries. This was in Switzerland. We're taking helicopters through the Alps, and we would land at the G20 meeting in Switzerland, where we'd cover the president. He would meet with various politicians from around the world and business leaders. Sort of just a mix all around of different photo events that we would get to go into for minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Not a lot, but you had to make the most of it because it was a rare time that president wouldn't see some of these folks for several years, or you wouldn't see them in American soil for several years. So you wanted to make the most out of those opportunities to capture them as best you could. This was from the Juggalo March on Washington. It's taken for the motorcade. I'm sorry about the quality here. It was shot through a windshield. These kids were holding a flag. This is from 2 years ago during the Paradise, California fires. And as the motorcade was speeding by in California, these kids were on the side of the road and just waving a flag, just excited to see the president run through. Just tough day. Kind of odd how it seems like that would be from this year, but with the masks, but it was not. I go on the campaign trail too. I was covering Pete Buttigieg that month. That down there, the woman looking up at him is actually his mom. That was just a nice moment. Mom watching her son. He had just accepted victory in Iowa at that time during the latest Iowa caucuses. Just something different. This black strip is actually a red velvet rope. This is at Mar-a-Lago. This is with some Caribbean leaders, some supporters on the campaign trail, and some folks celebrating just over a week ago. This was in DC, and people had rushed down to Black Lives Matter Plaza in DC to just cheer. It was just a big party, a very happy overall atmosphere. A lot of camera gear got ruined that day with champagne and other alcohol, but thankfully it wasn't mine. And on the other side of that, some protests too. This was from the summer in response to George Floyd's death. Some confrontations on the right outside the White House. And most recently, in later on in June, protesters were trying to take down the statue of Andrew Jackson outside the White House. It's funny, the roll of toilet paper up there in the air kind of made me laugh at. But just a really tense day, nonstop protesting as it was all around the country. A lot of it was in DC, just nonstop for 30 to 50 days, I think. We almost 2 months straight. Every night we'd be out trying to cover all of that that was going on. So it's important to stay healthy and to get rest when you can, because sometimes you don't have much choice but to take on like a 12 to 14-hour day for 4 or 5 days in a row, and it'll eat at you. It'll make it difficult to do other things in your social life, especially. And this was Supreme Court over the summer had passed law that prevented nationwide employers from discriminating against employees based on I can't think of it. I'm so sorry. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I can't remember. It was non-discriminatory employment laws, so forgive me about that. And last over, this was the more George Floyd protests, Jacob Blake protests. Reverend Al Sharpton had gone to speak on the National Mall, and I jumped in the reflecting pool with some of these kids out here waving flags and cheering and running around. Much more had jumped in, I think, after they had seen these guys out here in the fountain. And that's it for me, for all I have. And we're not done. I know I'll take on some questions, but if you have any other further questions or anything else, you're more than welcome to email me. I'm happy to answer you. And Will, I think we'll take it back to you now.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Really great photos. Thanks, Tom. It was
Thank
really
you.
Your journey. There's a couple of questions that have come in, and I have a bunch in my head as well. So we'll kind of dive in.
You want to read them all off on the Q&A?
Yeah. Why don't we do it that way? The first two that have come in, and then if anyone else has questions, start just typing them in. But actually, the first two are from Kurt Chandler, who's another professor here. He asks,
"Hey, Kurt.
Is
Good to hear from Kurt.
Is it tough on your mental health to deal with the reaction to reporters by pro-Trump crowds when you cover several rallies in a row?" Following up on that photo of the guy kind of screaming at you to get out of the way.
It is. I mean, it's for the most part. I don't think people in the later years of this administration were not as rough as they were early during the campaigning when Trump originally was going out. Excuse me. Yeah, we've had some kind of close calls. I think it's more that sort of rhetoric. You'd be more disturbed at stuff you would see online in that commentary towards journalists and enemy of the people and everything like that. And it just, yeah, it's absolutely frustrating. I mean, I think I've grown a tolerance to it because you kind of hear the same lines a lot. And I've taken less people seriously because it just sounds the same after a while. But it's when you get the president saying that, we're the enemy of the people. It's frustrating to hear that, because I know some people just really take that to heart. And we've seen, an uptick of violence against journalists in these past couple of years, and um, it's just scary to see. And I think it does hit at your mental health a little bit here and there. But at the end of the day, I'm working with a lot of my friends, frankly, and we kind of roll it off and keep moving on. Um,
Do you
yeah.
think either the way you've been treated sort of personally, or I don't know what your political views are, but whichever way they go, does any of that color your photography, do you think, or are you conscious of that? Or
No, I am. I don't think it really affects my photography as much. Maybe not as much as others, but um, you know, I I stay as informed as possible. I read as much as I can about what's going on in the place I work. And at the end of the day, it's just that, like we've been taught in J school, we're speaking in the language of visual emotion here. I have to have something that makes you connect as a reader, and I'm not going to be here. I could easily make cheap shots of the president, like with his mouth hanging a funny way if I happen to get a freeze frame of him speaking. Yeah, I'm not going to be here to be disrespectful, because I don't want my access to be pulled. And what we've built on here is not only what we've been able to accomplish during the Trump years. I mean, we have a legacy here, and I don't want to ever disrespect that. So I really try to fly straight and just respect the office as much as I can.
fair enough. Um, Kind of following up a little bit on that, on the kinds of pictures that you make. Well, Kurt has a question. He asks, how careful are you with what images you use on social media? And then what's your strategy for what to post or not to post? And then how do you deal with comments? So it's a multi-part question.
Uh, what I try to post what I think is a very fair picture. If like going back to the same, I'm not going to have a cheap shot of somebody eating midway through a sneeze or anything like that. But if the picture objectively reflects thorough news that occurred that day, or if it shows me something different that comments on something without editorializing it too much, yeah, I think it's worth it. Like I said, I look at everything that everybody does during that day with my competitors. So I think I've been able to grasp what is different in terms of what I've been able to produce for pictures as the years go on. Uh, but in terms of the commentary stuff, I mean, it can get pretty brutal. I have no room for like hate speech or anything vicious like that. If people want to hash out their disputes, then that so be it. But I draw the line at obvious anti-Semitism or uh, any hate speech of any kind. That's a no fly for me. Or so, yeah.
How often are the more, I don't know, creative, unusual pictures getting used by Reuters? Are they moving a lot of that stuff, or is a lot of that just for your
Yeah,
own?
they do move it. They know. I think I've always enjoyed making different pictures and sort of stepping away from the pack, if you will. All my competitors. Um, I had a conversation usually beforehand, like, okay, I'm going to give you some really weird curveball pictures, something different, sort of bending the rules. By all means, if you don't see it fit as marketable based on the business model that we serve, I won't be heartbroken if you spike it. If you say no, I'm not going to take it. Like that's okay. It's a far reach, but they're willing to have that conversation. And
Are you,
so,
sorry to interrupt, are you also delivering up sort of the standard, safe, predictable
yes,
photo as well?
absolutely,
You're always giving them something they can use.
absolutely. We're the wire service. We have to provide. I'm putting pictures out there for a variety of different clients. Um, Not that I know all those clients, but I could figure out a few of them right away. But I can sort of gauge what's going to sit well with them and what's not. And if it's too crazy, too funky, Wall Street Journal probably won't like that. They like a nice, steady, straight, head-on forward picture at times. So you can kind of, based on what you read, you can kind of pick up who's going to take what. Safety first. Yeah,
Good to know. Yeah, I mean, good advice for students, I think, to both make that safe picture and then also try to.
absolutely. Save and just study everything and figure out what that safe picture looks like. If you've got a library at Penn State, or go out there and see what's out there. And that's sort of going to give you your guiding light, I think, for how you approach that, because I couldn't figure it out until I really got here, until I sort of had that voice in my head of where to go.
Good advice. Great. From one of our students, one of our PJ students, Noah Riff, he asks, can you walk us through your workflow? I know you have to file extremely fast. I'm interested to know how all that works.
Sure. Let me. All right. So in my bag, say for today, I went to go see Joe Biden go to a meeting. I carry in my bag, I have a small backpack, got my laptop, I have card readers, chargers, handful of memory cards, some extra batteries. I carry 2 Canon 1DX Mark IIs, and today I went out with a 24-70 and a 100 to 400 millimeter lens on those two. Also in that bag is a MiFi hotspot, and what we do at Reuters, which is a little bit different. Others do it, but we do it more frequently. I have transmitters on my Canon cameras. They screw in, they're little silver antennas. And through Microsoft Teams, if the news is urgent too, if this is for, if it's crazy and I need to get pictures out to the wire right away, I will take pictures. I'll go in the back of the camera, and I'll text an editor who I have on my phone app. I say, hey, we usually have a slug for today. So today, for every day. So that slug is USA election /Biden. And that's like a keyword for editors to know. When I text them and say, hey, I'm going to send these from my camera, raws, haven't touched them, haven't done anything with them. They say, okay, we're going to take them. They're going to caption them for me, and then they're going to tone them and put them up on the internet as soon as, quicker than I can. So that's a big part of my workflow. On the lesser crazy side, I'm using Photo Mechanic and I'm using Photoshop on my computer. I haven't used Lightroom since college. Last time I was there was Lightroom 4, so it was a little bit slower probably than what we would have today for you guys. But those two are my bread and butter. I use folders for the day, so I have a set format for how I date the folders, so it can be all keyworded, and I plug in all of the IPTC information in that field in Photo Mechanic for captioning, for identifying people, for locations. All of that in that workflow also default attached to every time I ingest pictures has my addresses, has my websites, has everything about me. So in the event that if by chance somebody on the internet used my picture without giving me a license fee or took it without telling me, I can go in and figure out, or I can ask that user or person, show me the metadata, please. And it'll show everything embedded within that JPEG file or PNG or whatever, who shot this picture in case that was to occur. I back up through, I have a Drobo storage. I use Backblaze, which is a secure backup state for the entirety of my hard drive. And then I also have Amazon Photos is free with Prime, unlimited storage. It's pretty cool. And so those are the things I've been sort of juggling through, and I have a few external hard drives as well. Hopefully that'll answer your question.
Great. That's great. Yeah, if Noah has other questions, he can throw them out there.
Sure.
Got another question that asks, how does photographing Biden compare to photographing Trump? Is it harder because Biden seems to be out in public less?
This week, I would say Biden and Trump have probably been out in public about the same time. As it's been very quiet on both ends. Biden has been pretty quiet over. Grant, I've only been here for about 2 separate 7-day stints, so I haven't seen him nearly enough as I've seen Trump. But when I have seen him, it's been very quiet. And when we do get to go in and actually make pictures with him, it's you have 3 minutes, 5 minutes in and out. He doesn't really like to stop and talk. He is not into, getting the camera in his at his point of view. So I think it's going to be probably quicker and quieter in terms of how we cover him with pictures.
I know that the Obama administration was notoriously known for limiting, access to the press and to photographers. Do you have any sense of how things might change under
I
a
think
new
it's going to quiet down. I
Yeah.
think it's Trump. We had the best access ever with Trump. Not going to lie, it was great. You could get creative because you had time. Now it's a quick machine gun shoot. You're in and out, and you must get as much as you can because that's it. You got a minute, 2 minutes.
Right.
I've only covered Trump, so I don't know what that's truly like to be in a quicker time space like that with the Obamas. But we'll obviously we adapt just like we always do.
I'd actually like to, that makes me think of another question, but let me ask you one from one of our attendees. I assume a student who asks, Max asks, what steps would you recommend for students who aren't studying journalism but are still interested in photojournalism in terms of networking or to find work in the industry?
I would say you don't have to. There's no absolute. You're not required to go to school for photojournalism. A few of my coworkers who are amazing photographers, and they went to school for economics or for accounting or for or didn't even go to college. I think that is proof that those encounters you have with people that you want to continue talking to at those networking events, that is the proof that those are so valuable, because it takes a mentor to get you where you need. And you have that in your school. You have that right here. You also have probably equipment available and other opportunities within Penn State that will help you propel you to where you want to go. But it's definitely going to be it's not a deal breaker.
I'll put in another plug for the Northern Shore course and the National Press Photographers Association. So, especially if you're not studying journalism, that's a great place to make connections. We have a local student chapter for the MPPA here on campus. So
Very
take
nice.
advantage of that. Yeah. Noah's back with another question. What's your favorite photo book?
I don't know if I have a dead-on favorite. My teacher just did a book called Join Together with the Band. And he covered the Who for a number of years. And it's just really great, just behind the scenes pictures. When I'm home, I've been trying to read that as much as I can. It's pretty big. Should be online. I think it'd be pretty good to check out.
And what's it called again?
It's called Join Together with the Band. It's about my teacher, William Snyder, his journey with the Who since from the 80s to now, or just right before COVID.
Very good.
So, very cool.
I was curious because you said sort of before you randomly ran into El Drago that you were thinking of getting out of photography. And I wonder.
That's right. Yeah.
I guess my first question is what had sort of turned you off, or why were you feeling like you wanted out? And then
I think I wanted out because at the time, working at a mid-sized daily newspaper, which had become printing 3 days a week, it just got to be. I was living in Western Michigan. I had never been there before I had taken the internship, and I kind of went on a whim because I thought to myself, I don't want to go home after college without work or without a job. So I really pressured myself to go out and do something with my life, with my degree, as best I could. and I truthfully didn't fall in love with the place I worked. I didn't have, I felt like I didn't have much in common with the people that I was photographing. And so I was just kind of running around, and it felt like it was fast food journalism, and a lot of it was for clicks. And we were making big slideshows, and we were, whereas I would see a certain amount of pictures would cover the story, I was told, no, you need to have more because we needed to hit the slide requirement in order to get the viewership out of the advertisement slides that would come out of it. And that just frustrated me. I burned out. I didn't care for that. And I didn't, uh, I don't think it's necessarily wrong. It's just a business model that I didn't want to follow through with. And so I left. I went home, took a perma-lancing gig with the New Jersey Devils, and I would live with my parents and took the train up all winter to go cover those games. Um, I was, at that time, I'd been part of my local fire department since I was like a teenager. It was down the street, so it was always there. And I enrolled in the firefighter academy, and I was gonna like do that and be done with, you know, photojournalism being the main income factor of my life. I just felt more secure, something I was familiar with to a degree. I started to get bigger assignments after a while, and I missed too many classes at the fire academy. And they said, if you miss any more, we're going to have to kick you out. And you got to redo the whole academy all over again. So make a choice. So I said, all right, I'm going to go with freelancing still. And that was when I was like, all right, I'm back. I think I'm in. That was almost a year out of school. It's like, you know, I just needed a break because nobody told me to stop. They just said keep going. So I think I overworked myself a bit.
And so, I mean, on the one hand, what you're doing now seems really glamorous, but it's also, I mean, you're working, as you said, super long days. There's a lot of, I assume, just waiting, for stuff. You're shooting,
Absolutely.
in some ways, you're shooting the same thing over and over, press conferences and hearings and people,
Yes.
so what is it that keeps you wanting to do this and not go back to firefighting or whatever?
I think I want to keep doing this because it's now that I'm in the game of politics where it took me maybe 7 months of catching up at 5 a.m. on newsletters and reading. And I'm realizing that I have fallen in love with the sport known as the politics. And it's a really big, two giant teams, if you will, and then some. But it took a hell of a long time to figure that out. That once you understood all the chess pieces on the board, you could sort of see the moves that would be made. And there would be an entertainment factor to knowing like, oh, so-and-so said this. I wonder how that's going to affect X, Y, and Z, or in this area, or, who's going to, there's nothing but constant investigations and breaking news stories that would pop up out of the White House, out of Washington this last 4 years. It's been crazy. So it was really exciting. I think I got sucked in just because I was always excited because there's always something going on. There's something else. And if not, there were 6 things happening at the same time and you were swamped in it. But it was really cool because you would see it all from the front. And I think being able to have a say in how that front line, so to speak, looks, that keeps me going because I get to be creative on somebody else's time. And, it's see history, man. It's unlike anything else. I've seen an impeachment, shutdowns, pandemics. Hopefully it won't be worse in the coming years. People will stay healthy and we won't lose jobs, but I get to see it all, man.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Not to curse you, but I wouldn't mind if things calm down a little bit here.
It's gonna, yeah, but it's important because it goes back to being creative and being resourceful, and I think that's part of like students. And one of my big student pitfall was like I would just wait around the newsroom, or I would sit next to the scanner, Yeah, I didn't go out there and find pictures or stories or, essay ideas that I really enjoyed or I wanted to take part in. And so you kind of can fall into a slump because there's no news right now and you're not taking the time to go take the time. And so I think it's going to be a good push for me to do different things, not exclusively. I'll still be doing politics, but it's important to just break out and go and find something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a couple of questions or a bunch of questions have come in. So let me stop being selfish.
Sure.
Um, Kyle asks, if you could photograph any moment in history, what would you choose?
I think the 1980 Miracle Hockey game was up there. That would be definitely one of my favorites. Uh, if I didn't have any problems with access, I'd love to hang out at Camp David. Camp David for those you don't know, is a presidential retreat. It's up near Hagerstown, Maryland. There's no press allowed in there, guests maybe, but um, there's a lot of events that have gone in there, but it's kind of a quiet place for the president to sort of get out of Washington and maybe clear his head or her head in the future. It definitely somebody I know in the administration had a picture of a presidential edition pool table, and it's the presidential seal with the Camp David presidential retreat circle on the table with everything, and it's kind of a just to see it, people hanging out in more casual moments when they're not facing TV cameras. Anytime up there, I think would be really something special to see. But other than that, that's all I've got, I think, for now.
Well, those are pretty good. It'd be great to have been at Camp David for some of the big things that have happened.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I'm definitely not thinking of big ones that I should have. There's so many.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
There's a lot.
yeah.
But I'm a big hockey fan, so that was always something. I'm always biased on that. So,
Miracle on
a
Ice.
good question.
Um, let's see. Andrew asks, where do you look for inspiration when you feel burned out or need something fresh?
I'll look at, what I've been doing? I've been going on Craigslist to see the volunteer page, to see what people are doing. And there's a good crop of people out there or even Facebook, where you'll find stuff where you find people that are doing honest work for something or have a charitable cause or GoFundMe. That's always great too. You never know what the cause is. Uh, I through a GoFundMe, I found um, they were raising. This was in college. These girls were adopted, and uh, their stepfather was dying of liver failure, and they needed money to buy the tombstones for their other parents that had passed
Hmm.
because they were going to become orphans again. And they were trying to get money for college, and they wanted matching tombstones, and the kids were going to pay for it. And so we found out this through GoFundMe at the time. It was not too far from Rochester. It was down in Lima or Avon, New York, down there on 5 and 20, Will. And I spent time with him as their father was dying. Eventually he passed away the next morning. We had some just really intense pictures that came out of it, but the kids were really grateful for the pictures, and it was just a very intimate moment. They used the picture on their GoFundMe page, and they ended up going over the quota for what they needed, and had some more money for college. So internet is an amazing place, but Craigslist too. Like I said, I found a person that made their backyard into a makeshift wedding venue for people that didn't that had their weddings canceled because of COVID, because the churches were putting up bans for it at the time. So just things like that. You never know.
Are those things you're doing just for yourself, or is Reuters interested in those kinds of?
For Reuters, I'm usually very busy because we do shift work, so I don't have time to break off and do something like that. But I will pitch story ideas, essay ideas, and they like to set time aside, so that way we can do that, because they know we do this day in and day out. It gets old.
Yeah, yeah.
It's healthy. Yeah.
That's great. What am I missing here? I don't want to miss any. James asked, do you have any particular resources you recommend to study Photoshop techniques, etc.?
Uh, I was taught very hands-on through school. I, you know, and James, I don't know what James's major is. Is it in photojournalism directly?
Yeah, I'm not
So for conversation's sake for everybody, I'm bound by a set of ethical rules. I cannot add in objects. I cannot manipulate the pictures. Um, that's a big no-no. I crop, I can lighten or darken, but that's usually just about it. And so that's as much as we can do to be under the ethical guidelines for photojournalism. But I would say Momenta workshops, or not Momenta, like the masterclass series or uh, lynda.com. They have all of the Adobe suite. You can look through there, and I think they do a pretty killer job.
Yeah, but a good reminder that, you know, the limits that ethics place on journalists mean in some ways you don't have to learn a lot about Photoshop. You only need
You're
to.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a bad skill to have. I'm not knocking you for doing other things in Photoshop because, you might have to do something commercially, or you have somebody's, hey, could you edit out that scar on my face, a family photo, whatever. By all means, go after it.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Kurt has another question. One of your best known pictures is Trump with the flag seeming to blow out of his mouth. Can you show everyone that image again and talk about how you saw it
Sure.
and then how much play maybe that image has received?
Oh, oops. Whoa, sorry. Can everybody see this in full screen? Is that okay? Or am I still split screen?
No,
There it goes.
I just gotta need to make it bigger. I can see it. Yep.
Okay. So the flag photo. Um, this was in Jacksonville, Florida. Um, so when we do these Trump rallies, I'm in the traveling pool. So there's 4 still photographers, always 4 photographers, plus a couple of the official photographers from the White House. We get shuffled in. We come out of Air Force One. We go down into the airport hangar or on the tarmac where these rallies are taking place. There's like a small buffer right in front of the podium. We get maybe 5 minutes in there to run around at point blank, take pictures right in amongst Secret Service agents. And we get the front row people in the crowd. They're all going crazy and screaming. And it's this whole big party when Trump comes on stage. People go bananas. So we get our chance to get as much all the emotional pictures out of that. That's our bread and butter. In the last minute, when I know I got what I pretty much needed, or what I think I usually have is what we need, I play around. I try to do different stuff. I get low, I lay down, I jump up, I hold the camera over people's heads. At this point, they were starting to have these giant American flags uh, streaming from fire trucks um, behind Trump. So I came around off of his side, and I think I used it 70 to 200. And it took me maybe 35, 36 pictures. I motor drive the hell out of this thing. I didn't see it right away. I thought it'd be kind of funny. I was trying to, the flag wasn't consistently blowing abreast like this, where it was kind of waving in and out. I mean, it was just massive, the size of a building. And the wind had just picked up, and I had, beside 3 other photographers who were right next to me, not very COVID friendly, I know. We were all going like this, trying to work the flag. And I was just, because I knew at the corner of my eye, I could see our wrangler, we have a government minder that says, okay, you guys need to leave now. The time is up. You have to go back to your filing area. She's coming around this corner, and I knew I've got seconds to do something here. And I think out of, in the 20 or 30 mark of the pictures, it wasn't until I got back to the computer that I realized I had it. And I just timed it right. But everything else, the flag is a little bit off to the side or around, but firm footing and a heavy trigger finger there, and it worked out.
Did it get good play? Did it?
Yeah, it got Reuters Pictures of the Year today, which is awesome. I think it was in Time. The Atlantic, I think, ran it. Definitely a few other places. I think in El País magazine, which is a huge Spanish publication. I haven't fully seen. I have to ask exactly where it got around to, but I think it definitely had its time on the internet.
That's great. So in this case at least, you sort of had an idea of what you wanted. You sort of saw it
Yeah,
and then
didn't.
kept working it to get it to look the way.
Yeah, and I also think too it was very, timely. At these rallies, we're doing 3 to 4 or 5 rallies a day, and so he's sort of he loves to yell. He's a very loud personality, and so he loves to project that vision of America onto him. So I thought it was kind of timely on how he was, how he wanted to, what he was speaking about for the election ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple more minutes. If anyone else, oh wait, another question's coming in. But if anyone else has any more questions, drop them in now, and we'll take a few more. Kyle asks, when COVID really first started and hit hard in March, were you still going to the White House at first, or was it all on lockdown, limiting the number of people?
No, it was not locked down at all. We would get a temperature check at the gate every day. It'd be 2 Navy doctors or medical personnel would come in, and they would put a thermometer to your forehead, and they would ask you if you had symptoms, and then you would be let in. And I think that was right around March. Then it got into April is when we formally started seeing COVID testing every day, or days that we would see the president. And so now we just do it nonstop at 9 a.m. It's not pleasant. You're working with people in very tight spaces, and so you've all rely on each other to play by the rules. With that being said, I can't vouch for a lot of the administration officials still don't wear masks, and it's tough because you befriended a lot of them, and there was that outbreak. There's another outbreak happening right now inside, but the outbreak where the president got sick, a lot of people like my age were getting sick, and with this thing we don't know, and it's without doubt scary to watch. Can't deny that at all.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Is there any pressure from the White House to not wear a mask? Were you feeling any kind of?
No, I think there was kind of a feeling that, well, everybody's tested every day, so therefore we must be okay. And nobody really brought it up, but no, there was never any like direct verbal pressure to not wear a mask. It is only when Fauci, when the CDC initially reversed course on the mask wearing, was when we decided that we were okay. Well, now we have to go back and, at first it was like, well, we have to save the amount of masks purchased because we need it for first responders and medical personnel. And then once it went back to how it is now, we went full swing on it, and work gets us all masks and stuff.
So wrapping up, I'll ask one more question. I'll just making sure I haven't missed any here. I'm curious, like for you, what's the measure of a good day? When do you know what's success for you every day?
I think success every day is if I could show you something that the other photographers weren't able to get in a news valued environment. If there's a big story going on, or if there's an action that took place, it's really rewarding when you get to photograph an administration official that nobody else really saw, but you had insight as to what was going to happen with them possibly. And so you were on the forefront of the next story that was going to happen, but you had the best pictures because nobody else was looking for that. So you had the most room to move around. I've had right before his firing in the Oval Office, I went around the side there's 2 couches inside the Oval Office. And if you get behind them, you're allowed to most times go behind them for different angle to make pictures of the president. Well, directly behind the president is the corner door that goes into the rest of the West Wing, where it's sort of an alcove, and you can't see if you look head on who's in the doorway, except if you're in the position I'm in, you can. That man was John Bolton, who was one of the national security advisors, and he was fired over a tweet. But I have a photo of all of the press corps looking out, looking over at Trump, and then in the background you have John Bolton with his, white mustache, and he's sitting there and looking out, and no one had a clue he was there. But there's a lot of scandal that developed over time with him. That that was when I'm glad I made the difference by taking the risks to make something different, because it was worth it.
But also by knowing the story, right? So all that reading that you're doing, all that prep
Yeah, a
work.
little bit. I try to look at every official. I photographed somebody I don't recognize. If it's when you go into the room, all the cameras are pointed at the table where the VIPs are sitting. But the best thing I've ever, Bruce Bennett, a hockey photographer for Getty Images, I asked him, "What do you do to keep it interesting?" He said, "It's simple. He's up, down, 360. Just keep your head on a swivel." And if you turn around some of these meetings, you'll find people there that are in the, senior level administration officials hanging out, like just sitting there, leaning there, having a coffee sometimes once or twice, just checking in. They're not in the meeting. They're just looking in to see how it's going. And if they're a rare find, if you're like, "Oh, I haven't seen that guy or girl in like, a month. What are they doing? Or why are they here? They don't work here." And now you have it. But it's all about being informed. Otherwise, you'd have no idea,
Right, who they were.
unless you kept up on your reading. And it's tough because some days you don't want to. You really don't, but you have to.
Well, that was great. I really enjoyed this. I love
Thank you for having me.
yeah, the pictures are really great, and it was fun to kind of hear
Thanks.
your story and finally get to meet you.
Some great questions, y'all. Thank you so much. And like I said earlier, anybody has any other questions, don't hesitate to email me. It's all good.
Yeah. Thank you all for being here. We will do this again in the spring. Make sure you're safe when you go home for Thanksgiving. Do you get to go somewhere for Thanksgiving, or are you?
I got a little place on the beach somewhere with my girlfriend. We're not going home.
Very nice.
So we are gonna have some alternate plans, but it's all good. We are plenty of FaceTiming to do this coming week.
Yeah, for everyone.
So,
Well, thank you again. Really appreciate it.
of course, you guys have a great, safe holiday too, and be safe out there.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Thank you, Will.